would like to start at the outset to say that I am not an expert in artificial intelligence, nor in programming, nor in the manufacturing of robotics. So my presentation will focus more and more on the ethical aspect and what theology can contribute particularly what type of theological method we need in order to understand this emerging and converging technology, which is going to change the landscape of our culture. If in the past, the church has been criticized that she has been a bit suspicious and also negative towards technology, this cannot be said on artificial intelligence and robotics, definitely, because the church is taking a very active and proactive role in the public square, in the discussions on these intelligent artificial machines. And this debate, I think, is also taking the church the initiative and entering into dialogue with this new sector of technology. In fact, if we see Pope Francis' allocutions and speeches and homilies, Pope Francis is referring continuously on artificial intelligence and robotics. Also, this year's Day of Peace on 1st January specifically focuses on the issue of artificial intelligence. Particularly the Pontifical Academy for Life, of which I am a member, organized two general assemblies on this topic. In 2009 on robotics and in 2020 on artificial intelligence. The proceedings of these two conferences are also available. And what is interesting, in 2020, the Rome Declaration for Artificial Intelligence was signed. And this declaration was signed not only by the Pontifical Academy for Life, but by Microsoft, IBM, FAO, the Italian government, and other institutions. So this shows how the church is building and bridging on this particular area. This year, for instance, this Rome Declaration on Artificial Intelligence has been signed also by Justin Welby, the Archbishop of Canterbury. In 2023, Cisco, which is a multinational digital communications technology platform, has also signed this declaration, which is a plea for ethics. The University of Notre Dame in 2002 also organized, in cooperation with the Pontifical Academy for Life, a big conference, international conference on this matter. In Fratelli Tutti, Pope Francis makes reference to it, and last year it was signed by the three monotheistic religions, just to show you the importance of the theme for the church, that it's not just watching and observing, but entering into constructive, critical dialogue. As you know, also Pope Francis has already shown his wish and willingness to participate in the G7 session on artificial intelligence due to be held in June in Italy. Just to tell you, to put you into the landscape of the importance of the theme we are discussing for the church. Okay, so let us start with the landscape of artificial intelligence. I'm going to focus mainly on robotics as an embodiment of artificial intelligence. And I'm going to combine the Catholic thinking and the establish a method, and also integrate a very important document which the European Group of Ethics has published when I was a member of the European Group of Ethics on the future of work, future of society. How is robotics, artificial intelligence, changing the landscape of the labor market? And what can theology contribute to this? The legend, the Jewish legend of a late 16th century rabbi, Loaf from Prague, I think, which is known as the Maharat, today has become a reality. This rabbi, Loaf, has observed how people worked in his own times in Prague under very harsh, inhuman conditions. And he tried to create, in fact, he created, according to this legend, a creature in order to assist people in their daily life tragedies and to help them to ease their work. And Rabbi Loaf also talks about this golem, he called golem, and he tried to teach this golem, this creature, anthropomorphic qualities, how to communicate, how to mimic human creatures. But he did not succeed, and he was greatly disappointed. But if we compare what he dreamt, he was the first prophet, like Aldous Huxley in 1930 with his book Brave New World. It was the prophecy of reproductive technologies, of genetic engineering, and so forth. We can say that Rabbi Loaf was the prophet of today's artificial intelligence and robotics. On the contrary, today's robotics are far more than mechanical and stationary machines, because they have acquired human qualities like intelligence, social abilities, creative abilities, interaction, emotive abilities. They are mobile, communicative, and autonomous. And sometimes they have exceeded the abilities of us humans through algorithms. So we have entered the world of a thinking machine, of intelligent machines. And obviously, this is changing the whole landscape. Here, you have in these pictures an idea how artificial intelligence and robotics is changing the nature of work and the nature of social relationships. There is the possibility that robotics will replace humans or work side by side with humans. What type of ethical framework we need in order to protect the dignity of the worker, the autonomy of the worker, the privacy of the worker. These are the issues which were raised as a group of experts in Europe on the future of work, future of society. It's changing the traffic system, the driving system, autonomous driving. What do you mean by autonomous driving? How safe they are? What can these contribute? Are they positive or negative? Even in medicine, they have pervaded also through robotic surgery, just as with the care of the elderly and children. Are these positive developments or negative developments? These are the questions which we need to raise in our discussion. So, robotics and artificial intelligence are actually blurring the lines between what is human and what is a machine. Sometimes machines, we think that they are humans, and sometimes humans, we think that they are machines. What is natural and what is artificial? Can we say, because this is artificial intelligence, just as we have so many artificial means of prolonging human life, is this correct? How can we distinguish the natural, the human being especially, who is natural, with these now artificial additions, which is making this machine mimicking, imitating human beings in an artificial way? We are also distorting the lines between what is physical, the physical world, and the virtual world. Obviously, it is changing the relationship, the economy, the industry, employment, jobs, medicine, and healthcare. And as I have mentioned in the previous slide, robotics and artificial intelligence are being applied in military and surveillance robotics to sex robots, to industrial, to social robots, to household, to farming robots, from driverless cars to advanced medical products, from robotics, receptionists to elderly and children robotics. You know that in Japan, they also, in Kyoto, one of the temples, they created Pepper, the famous Pepper robot, in order to teach people there Buddhist faith, and also to use this during funerals to chant Buddhist hymns and sutras. Just to show you, I don't think that we can ever accept to have robotic priests eventually with the lack of vocations we are having, but the Buddhist religion, faith community has already accepted that. This is the reality. What is the position of the church? Definitely not condemning or a negative approach, but if we take the message of peace on 1st January, it is very prophetic. Pope Francis acknowledges this is the signs of the times. This is the rationality we are having in the technological rationality, that the digital technology is actually changing the face of communication, changing the ways of administration, of financial systems, of work systems, of communication, school system. School system. You're launching a project, how artificial intelligence could be of assistance for the education and formation of school children and adults. So at the same time, Pope Francis is pinpointing to the risks and benefits. Risks and benefits. We cannot close our eyes and say, look, how instrumental they are from a utilitarian point of view, how much money we are saving, how effective they are, how efficient they are. What are the risks? And what are these risks, which we need to understand? How are they impinging on the common good, on justice, on the dignity of the human person? This is the criteria which the church is continuously using, and Pope Francis has already gone to the source, that these are not intelligent machines, come on. These are people who are producing this. So he is appealing to the importance that those who design and manufacture these systems, they should follow rules, set of rules, because they are not neutral. We cannot say that only efficiency and proficiency is what matters, but they must be done with good choices, with good value systems. In the same message, Pope Francis gives us already the basic ethical approach, and he spoke about the integral human development. This is the main basic principle. What do you mean by integral human development? This is a concept, as you know, that Pope Paul VI in Populorum Progressio in 1967 developed in the world of technology of that time, in the way of scientific progress, that no country should lag behind, but development should be global, not only of industrial society, but those who are in the disadvantaged economic system, one must guarantee the development of all human beings. Pope Francis is extrapolating this concept of integral human development to the digital world, a new type of technology. The concept remains the same, and a concept which is in line, Pope Francis is is giving us this vision of fraternity, of a unity among human beings, this sense of belonging, communion. And artificial intelligence and robotics must be of service to the entire nations and people to create this community of humankind. And in the last paragraph, he talks about the importance of a cross-disciplinary dialogue in order to create an ethical framework. And this is the point I'm going to explain, which ethical framework. How can we bring all these ideas about integral human development, human dignity? How could we set up an ethical framework which respects the tradition, the narrative tradition of Catholic theology, but at the same time remains relevant to today's advancement and cutting-edge technology as artificial intelligence and robotics. Okay, so in literature, when they talk about artificial intelligence and robotics, they speak more about the utilitarian approach, namely how much efficient they are, how cost-benefit analysis could be done, that they are reducing the hours of work to many employees, to many companies, that we are making this progress even in terms of economy and technological progress. But I think this is a very one-sided approach. We must go beyond that. And in a pluralistic society, all stakeholders must participate. It's no longer the culture where we say faith communities must be marginalized. Even Habermas talks so forcefully about the importance of all stakeholders, including faith communities, because churches can elucidate, can open up new ideas and new horizons which science and technology cannot absolutely produce. You know, science in itself is that which tries to master nature, to bring nature under the control of human beings, but technology itself is not concerned with the means how to reach that. And theological ethics is precisely very important to enlighten. Okay, what is the goal? To improve the quality of life. I agree with that. But what type of means are we using? What type of rationality are we using to reach that point? So the role of theology, I think, is very important, because theology has, as you know, the definition of theology is faith-seeking understanding, St. Anselm's definition. It is not faith separated from reason, nor reason separated by faith, but we need the interface of faith and theology. This dialectic tension between faith and today's technological rationality encourages artificial intelligence and robotics to go beyond the formalistic, rationalistic perspective and to broaden its perspective. And this is the contribution of theology in this debate, and also to go to a deeper level of understanding, to go beyond simply the utilitarian functionalistic point of view by searching questions for a deeper understanding of human experience. And we must keep in mind that it's not only scriptures, the word of God, which is a source for our reflection and thinking, but the Second Vatican Council gave us human experience as a source of theologizing. And human experience, what is the human experience today? The technological rationality, it is a sign of the time. But obviously, we need, through our dialogue, steer this technological rationality in the right direction. So it's not an attitude of condemnation like the modernist times, but in the Vatican II and post-Vatican approach, it is a way of dialogue. Even if you don't reach the highest level, but the role of the church is to dialogue and to raise as much the level as possible. I think that I find it very insightful, the letter which Pope Francis wrote to the Pontifical Academy for Theology, 1st November of last year, the document Ad Theologiam Promovandam. And I find a phrase which is very, very meaningful, a breakthrough in theology, especially in the domain of ethics, because Pope Francis is saying theology is not repetition of the past. That's not theology. Repeating continuously because we have always stated that way. No, theology is a science and it's moving, that just as human experience is moving. And we have to be courageous and creative to enter into dialogue and bring the richness of our tradition to what is happening around us. And it is for this reason that Pope Francis speaks about not only interdisciplinarity, but transdisciplinarity. And I find that very meaningful and gives me an ease, a peace in my conscience when I say, look, this is what the church has always taught, but science can change my presupposition. But biotechnology can change my presuppositions, not in the sense that I discard the basic values and principles, but the line of argumentation can easily change in my perspective, because it's not there to have an interdisciplinary approach, transdisciplinary, that I learned humbly from the presuppositions of science, from what the world is saying in our life. Because we are not always truth, we are discovering the truth together. And as Pope Francis is trying to convince us, having the idea that only the hierarchy could know the truth, or those who are close to the church, Pope Francis in the synodal approach is telling us that those in the periphery, those who even don't attend, not practicing, they are also can reveal God's truth. And this is the whole concept of revelation, which has been proposed in the Second Vatican Council, which we have forgotten, that it is the people of God who is a source of revelation, not only just one source. So human experience is a source of revelation for us. And for this reason, we need to enter into dialogue and change, have the courage to change our presuppositions. I think that the theology offers a three-layered hermeneutical task. Theology, I think, has three roles, tasks, in front of technology, artificial intelligence, and robotics. First, the first question, how should we integrate, and not exclude, integrate the technological rationality within our faith narrative, our theological perspective? Secondly, how can we stimulate and motivate the world around us to see things in a holistic way? How can we do that? Thirdly, what questions should we raise in a constructive, critical way so that which is not seen by science, we try to open up the dialogue to have a more holistic approach, to go beyond the reductionist approach and reductionist model, and to make a difference between a robot and a human being. This is quite important and basic to understand that. And I have, mind you, I have taken this insight of theological thinking from Alphonse Sauer, his book Autonome Morale, which was the main debate in the post-Vatican II, in the mid-60s, 70s. What is authentically Christian in ethics? What is authentically Christian? Is there a philosophical ethics and a Christian ethics? Are these parallel to each other? No. And Autonome Morale, Stuckle in Freiburg and Alphonse Sauer in Tübingen, they came into dialogue, and I support the approach of Autonome Morale of Alphonse Sauer, who says that, who gives us a new way of doing Christian ethics, a new approach of how to make sense of the world around us. And that's why we need to dialogue not only with science, not only with philosophy, but also with science and technology. And also to understand the historicity of reasoning, because reason is always the manifestation of this process, unfolding process of rationality. And today's unfolding historical process is the question of artificial intelligence. What are the 3 steps which Autonom Morale gives us to understand this dialogue and how to integrate artificial intelligence and robotics within our theological narrative? First of all, we integrate by understanding the anthropology, not only philosophical, but also technological anthropology, which is being proposed in artificial intelligence. And we say, look, how can our tradition enlarge that? How can we give a broader context? So ultimately, it's an anthropological problem we are talking about. Even the whole discourse of Pope Francis and theologians, it is focusing mainly on theological, philosophical, technological anthropology. And what type of vision of human being? We have the vision of a human being created in God's likeness and image. What do you mean by human person, agency? What do you mean by human agency? Which is very important when we discuss the question of robotics. Is a robotic the same deciding and rationality and intentionality and freedom and consciousness as a human being? That is the philosophical approach, which Christian ethics can contribute a lot. A critique in the sense that what science can give us in a rudimentary way, we have to be critical to show also the transcendental aspect of the human person and to make a difference between a robot and a human being. What are the spiritual, not only religious, the spiritual dimensions of the human being which enlighten us to make the most important prudential judgment? And also we stimulate this judgment in a broader perspective. Okay, so now I haven't changed. Okay. Again, this question of anthropology is very much in line with Romano Guardini. What Romano Guardini a century ago spoke about technology in general and science. It was a prophecy in his writings. And he says that science and technology are not there to oppose them. These are new realities. 100 years ago, imagine today what Romano Guardini would say. But he said, ultimately, we must focus, the main problem is humanity. How they are impinging on the type of humanity, the nature of humanity. And Pope Francis is very much in line with Romano Guardini, artificial intelligence. He's stating this message to the World Economic Forum. It's not a joke. This is a very important international advocacy, non-governmental platform, which brings in this think tank, so many people around the world, high-level people, and Pope Francis is precisely entering in the dialogue and presenting, please think about the anthropological issues. Artificial intelligence, robotics, and other technological innovations must be completely employed, that they contribute to the service of humanity, to the protection of our common home. Obviously, we cannot speak about humanity uprooted and uncontextualized within an environmental context. So Pope Francis is bringing about this interrelational aspect of the human person, because we need each other, as a Fratelli Tutti says, we need all humanity around us, but we are rooted in an environment which needs to be protected. Rather, the country, as some assessment unfortunately foreseen. This is quite forceful in Pope Francis' understanding. Okay, so let's try to reflect a bit on the, I think I missed this one, but it's not important. I had another quotation from Pope Francis saying that all political activity must serve and promote the good, the integrity.
It's the next.
It's the next. Okay. Okay. So, what exactly? Can we go back because I'm not, I think it's not functioning properly. No, the other way. Okay, so this is the question of the integral development of the human person, namely the integral approach, as I explained, the method which I think we can use in order to integrate. I'm going to take integration, stimulation, and motivation, and the critical approach. This is the method I have developed, theological approach, in order to put them into a theological context. And in the first point, integrating role of theology in robotics, I have taken the concept of integral ecology, which, as you know, is the central concept in Laudato Si, and the integral ecology is that you see things from a broader vision, because nature is interrelated. Things are interrelated. Science is interrelated. You cannot see science and see only sufficiency. What is in effect on the common good, on people, on vulnerable people? Are they producing more vulnerability? Are they creating new gaps? So this question of broader vision, because we cannot see things and knowledge in a fragmented way, to avoid avoidance of fragmentation of knowledge and the isolation of bits of information. Remember that Pope Francis in Evangelii Gaudium gave us those very basic 4 principles, which I think reflect all his theological thinking and vision, that the whole is greater than the parts. Time is greater than space. Realities are more important than ideas. And also that unity prevails over conflict. And these 4 basic principles, I think, is very much pervaded in this integrative approach, this integral ecology, and also in technology. And this is important, I think, to assess the epistemological paradigm behind science and technology today. Sorry, wrong forward. Okay. Okay. Again, so shall I use this here?
I think this is
yes. Okay. Okay. So now we have this quotation of Pope Francis talking again about to question of human dignity and the human person, and then to contextualize this integral development, which Pope Francis used in ecological issues, but I'm using it also in the digital landscape of technology, the integral ecology versus the technocratic paradigm. Pope Francis speaks about the technocratic paradigm, which is invading society, which offers a new criteria how to assess things, whereas the integral ecology goes beyond that. Okay, and intelligent machines, it tells us in the message of this year, 1st January, intelligent machines may perform the task assigned to them with greater efficiency, but the purpose and the meaning of their operations will continue to be determined or enabled by human beings possessed by their own universe of values. What scale of values do we have? What scale of values? And this is the domain where the church has to contribute, because there is the risk that the criteria behind certain decisions will become less clear. Responsibility for those decisions concealed and procedures enabled to avoid their obligation to act for the benefit of humanity. This again has been reiterated by Pope Francis in 2019, when the Pontifical Academy for Life celebrated its 25th anniversary. And you see those underlines: the service of the human person, dignity for all. And he referred to the concept of the possible good. This is interesting. The concept of the possible good. The possible good is very important for us to learn in a pluralistic society, because we don't hold, we need to search truth with secular society, with people around us, believers and non-believers. And the possible good, that means we can never be 100% about this development, but we need to take the precautions possible. In the European Union, it's called the precautionary principle. We have to make checks and balances of all the benefits and risks, but at the same time, we cannot remain indifferent without acting or without pronouncing ourselves. So we have to say, what is the possible good? Which is that judgment, the prudential judgment now to take in front of this and lead it to a better situation, to try to avoid as much as possible the risks. And it's interesting that Pope Francis is including this post-Vatican II concept of the possible good without having full certainty. Can we ever have full certainty? Always have knowledge gaps, but we try to bridge as much as possible to make these knowledge gaps as narrow as possible in order to make the right decisions. Also, before coming to concrete examples, this is the Rome School for Ethics I mentioned earlier in 2020, signed by these big companies, again, speaking about service to entire humanity, just to reiterate the anthropological importance, the inherent dignity of the human person, and the need of those who are most vulnerable, because artificial intelligence and technology is a big threat, not to solve the food problem, those who are vulnerable. It can create many new pockets of vulnerability. And also how to expand the areas of freedom. Artificial intelligence with the big data can easily impinge on our freedom, and we also can be a threat to our autonomy, especially in the labor sector, as I shall be explaining. So also on the issue of the environment. To pass on to concrete issues, this is again from the Roman Call, and gives us 3 requirements. It must include every human being, discriminating against no one, so the sense of justice. This is how we can integrate artificial intelligence within our perspective. It must have the good of humankind as a whole and the ecosystem, which I have already explained. Now, what do you mean by human dignity? I'm talking so much about this anthropological issue, human dignity. I'm going to explain after the next slide concrete examples how human dignity can be easily violated and threatened by robotics and artificial intelligence. Okay, because it's very important who possesses human dignity. It is the human being who has inherent dignity created in God's image. Can we say that robotics, because they are intelligent, because they are faster than humans in algorithms, do they have human dignity? Definitely not. You know that, I will explain and discuss, are they subjects of rights? This is also a new debate on the European and international landscape. Do robotics have human dignity? And this discourse of human dignity is very important because this can help us to understand the anthropological issue involved. The last slide before I discuss concrete issues, as a work commission for ethics under the chairmanship of Bishop Antonian Jamnik, we have also issued a position paper, a statement last year on the European regulation on artificial intelligence and robotics. And you know that the main value of the European Union is human dignity. It's the first article of the Charter of Human Rights, and also in all different conventions. So we reiterated the statement that is very well received in European institutions. Look how we are in dialogue and bringing out our own anthropology to this debate in the European Parliament, that it must be human-centric and responsible, and must respect the fundamental rights and values. Europe is a community of values, which I'll explain tomorrow, and the basic is human dignity, which are ultimately are Christian principles. And that's why we have emphasized that this deep anthropological understanding must focus on human agency. That means autonomy, self-consciousness, deliberation, intentionality, freedom, accountability, as distinct from sophisticated activities of intelligent machines. And this is, I think, the crux of the matter which we need to discuss. Let us now try to give you some examples so that the concept of human dignity, anthropology created in God's image, does not remain a theoretical, abstract concept. I'm going to give you some examples how this concept of integrating the technological rationality within the concept of human dignity, humanity, can open up a new discussion on the impact of these on human beings. And relying this concept on the document which the European Group of Ethics have published some years ago, The Future of Work, the Future of Society. Okay, so obviously it has both positive and negative approach. First of all, it enhances the dignity of the workers when, for instance, it helps workers and relieves them from hard work, dirty work, dangerous situations. Of course, robotics and artificial intelligence should be reduced, should be employed in that sense, because it reduces and eliminate dangerous, humiliating, dirty, tedious work, and can make work more efficient, more varied, less strenuous, and more human. But, okay, if we are doing robotics and artificial intelligence in that direction, it is something which is positive. But if we are substituting workers by intelligent machines, that is something which is dangerous, because we are threatening the right to work of every human being. And you know, work, in the Catholic tradition, Catholic social thinking, there is a whole tradition since Rerum Novarum, Laborem Exercens, and other documents, and even in Laudato Si, Pope Francis speaks about the dignity of work. So today we are not speaking only about a fair wage to everyone, but also the right to work of every human person. Because the world of automation, the world of digitization, the world of robotization, we are threatening also the right to work of the workers. So not easily to find also employment in a highly complex, robotized and digital society if we are going to focus more on robots and we discharge people. society needs to introduce very robust and sustained programs of reskilling, upskilling of workers and society in general, because society is going to be more and more competitive. And that's why it's easier, I think, and superficial only to introduce robotization in industrialization. But those who are discharged, are we reskilling? Are we upskilling the skills of workers? Workers and machines working together, how much are we investing in the education? So this is the importance of a dignified life through work. We need to protect the right to work of every individual. Also, is it enriching or threatening human dignity? For instance, when we use artificial intelligence in order to monitor public spaces to ensure people's security and safety, this is something good, because we can walk more safely in airports and streets, and we reduce as much as possible the danger of movement of the human being. When it is used for military purpose, for defense purpose, remember the tradition of the just war tradition. So far, it's good. Today, with artificial intelligence and robotic missiles, and can target a particular spot without touching and killing civilians who are not involved. But how safe is this? I'm going to comment on that. But in principle, it is good that is used for military defense. Also increase the safety of the workers, increase productivity and discipline of workers. However, it can easily produce negative effect when the autonomy are at stake. For instance, workers today, the way we have artificial intelligence surveillance in a working place, sometimes you cannot distinguish between the life of the worker and the private life, especially when surveillance of workers continue beyond the working hours. So what is private? What is public in one's life? And this is increasing vulnerability, because when you are one's autonomy, one's freedom, privacy is threatened, obviously they are threatening the dignity of the human person. Robotic caregivers. This is also something which is good in itself, that it can help elderly people from the world of isolation, from solitary moments, and you can have robots who can talk, who can keep company to the elderly, or help health workers in lifting elderly people and in helping them to in the mobility of workers. But at the same time, the danger is against human dignity when we substitute the human care with robotic care. Because even though robots can frown and can look that they smile and they pretend that they have emotions, come on, we should never talk about humanoids. These are not humans. These remain intelligent machines, full stop. And we need people to communicate. But technology is there to help us, to help humanity, but at the same time, never to substitute care workers, physical care workers on this matter. Last year, we had an online conference in Malta on the 5 senses in bioethics. And I presented a paper on robotic touch and human touch with patients. I mean, it's a big difference. A robot touching a human person. Touching is very important for the patient, isn't it? To show emotion and empathy, isn't it? So it's one thing showing this communication through physical touch than robotic touch. But at the same time, helping disabled persons robotic cars can be safe and more efficient, but for instance, is there artificial care, artificial empathy? These do not exist. We have emotions. They mimic our emotions, but they're never emotional human beings. Also, robotic cars can help us, autonomous driving. This is now the cliche of the future, which we'll see them eventually, which might be helpful and help our dignity by having, hopefully, less stress in driving, less stress in finding a parking place, more precise. But how safe are they? Can robotic driving, for instance, driving, and you see children crossing a zebra crossing, and you have a bus with elderly persons. Are they able to do a prudential judgment? Where to go? How they manage? Because they are programmed. And no matter how intelligent, they cannot reach a prudential judgment as we reach prudential judgment. So these can never be, from an anthropological point of view, put on the same level. So this is, to my mind, how we can integrate robotics in a theological narrative through a sound theological anthropology, and also even if we see it within the three aspects of anthropology, as St. Thomas Aquinas sees them within creation, sin, and redemption, isn't it? We have to understand that the human failure, because of the reality of sin, we are created in God's image. Can we apply these three levels of theological thinking to a robot? Can we say that when something goes wrong, for instance, in autonomous driving, who is responsible for that? Who is responsible? The machine, the producer, the programmer, the manufacturer. Where is accountability? Who is responsible? So we should not mix the two things. Keep in mind, I'm raising these points because there are a lot of literature where they're talking about robotics as if they are human beings. And I want to give them the same rights. And I mean, is there a salvation from a theological point of view? Is there a salvation for robotics? Did Christ die also for robotics because they are human beings? Let's not bring in this language, and we try to trivialize theological language even in this domain. Now, the question of stimulation. It is being claimed that robotics, artificial intelligence embodied, has a sense of self, intention. They have goals, they have emotions, they have degree of awareness and consciousness. I'm going to say these are stupid concepts in applying them to robotics, even if they are more intelligent in reaching some conclusions. Capable of decision-making and interacting with others. They recognize people, they talk, resolve problems even faster than human beings. Here we have, I think, epistemological and ontological issues. Because moral knowledge is attributed only to human beings. Can we teach ethics to robotics? We can program some movements, even sophisticated programs, but can we talk about teaching principles and attending lectures for robotics? And do they have moral consciousness? Do they have also application of moral knowledge to a range of different and complex issues? You know, our ability as human beings, the concept of rational reasoning in the Thomistic approach and contemporary approach of the morality of human action, isn't it? This embarrasses how we reach from the universal principles to practical principles. I mean, we can talk this about humans, but we cannot talk to a robotic machine. Can we talk about machine ethics? This is a book on machine ethics. This is all technological reductionism. How can we talk about these elements in the case of robotics? So I think the anthropological challenges are there. Sorry. It's okay. That's correct. The anthropological issue is very important. Yes. Is it possible to construct some kind of artificial moral agents? Is it possible to construct some concepts of moral agents? I think this is completely impossible. Can we teach? Can we assign personhood to robotics? Look at what theology is stimulating for further discussion. Can we speak of the dignity of robots? Do they have rights? Are robots self-conscious? Do they have feelings and emotions? Do they have a moral conscience? Do robots have intrinsic value or instrumental value? I think this is very important for our consideration. In the whole tradition of theology, when we talk about the moral goodness of an action, what constitutes an action which is good? False moralitate. What is the goodness of the human action? We always talk about the object, the intention, and the circumstances. Can we say that robotics, outside of someone who has no moral consciousness, is outside the moral community, outside being human? This is the basic philosophical ethical concept. So can we say, let's forget the circumstances and the object. Can we attribute intentionality to a robot? Definitely not. We cannot apply intentionality because they have a programmed way of behavior, but they do not have the intention. The intention, as we have, is that I intend to do something which is ingrained, the intention which forms, as Anscombe has stated, the intention which forms the action. It's the intention of the programmer which is there, not the intention of the robot itself. And circumstances, obviously circumstances are determined by the technological aspect, and the whole argument is that we cannot apply the concept of human agency to a robot. Again, the message of Pope Francis in 2004, artificial intelligence challenges that are not only technical, but also anthropological, social, educational, and political. Humans are more than physical properties. They are nothing more than information processes. Robotics are information processes. According to the naturalistic view of strong artificial intelligence, humans are completely reducible to physical processes, and once these processes are understood, can be easily replicated in the form of hardware and software. So what is the relationship between the body and the soul, the brain and the mind? Can we say that they have a soul also? They can be seen. What mind is more than computer program? So the distinction between artificial and natural intelligence, human beings as God's image are more than intelligent machines. So we have to keep in mind that robotics actually lack, the goals of robotic activities are structured, they lack intentionality, they lack freedom, self-consciousness, lack of power, lack of autonomy, lack of personhood. Issue of the object, so is there an object in human action? Does it make sense? because an action is morally good if the three aspects of an action are fulfilled. We are going to apply the traditional way of applying this. So is it possible to construct, okay, artificial intelligence? Can we teach robotics? This is something which I have already discussed. Another problem in robotics. You know that in ethics, virtue ethics is much important, is as important as the normative approach to ethics, isn't it? So you know that virtues is the education of the self, of dispositions, of attitudes, of character traits, which is the Thomistic and Aristotelian approach, and McIntyre, and so forth. So can we now talk about the education of the self, of the robots? Does not make sense. What is the moral status of the human robot in this sense? What type of virtues can robots become virtuous? Virtue, you know, is the repeated action till it becomes a second nature. This is that definition, Thomistic definition of virtues. Do they repeat and they become virtuous, more prudent and more kind and more generous? No, doesn't make sense. Virtue is the result of rationality and the free will. And robots do not have free will. They have a programmed will, but not free will, according to the program they have. So can they be a subject of rights? This has been also discussed in the European Parliament some years ago. How do we give rights? You know that we have a tradition of giving rights to animals and giving rights to plants and giving rights to, even when Roe versus Wade was discussed in the United States, the judge at that time did not want to give rights to an embryo, but wanted to give rights to valleys and to, this is the postmodern approach, relativistic approach, how we are talking about rights, positivistic rather than based on a natural law approach. So can we talk about the rights of robots now? Not only animals, but robots. Are they subject of right? Would robots deserve the same moral respect and immunity from harm? Can we imprison a robot because the robot has done something wrong? And this was, you know, the commission by the Legal Commission Affairs of the European Parliament presented in 2007 a recommendation to give a status, a moral status, a digital status, digital personhood to a robot. And this was voted out, obviously, because we cannot do that to a robot. So this recommendation by the Legal Affairs Committee in the European Union calls for an extension of legal personality to robots. This runs contrary to the concept of human dignity enshrined in the European Charter of Human Rights. Responsibility rooted in the legal personality can only be exercised where there is capacity of freedom, and freedom is more than autonomy. It's more than programmed way of seeing things. Okay, now the last point. So I discussed how we integrate, how we stimulate, in giving more understanding of this anthropological, what type of critical questions we should raise. And I think the last 2 days, Pope Francis, I received it, but I can't identify the date exactly. But Pope Francis gave a very, very detailed speech on artificial intelligence and robotics very recently. And he speaks also in the same line of Pope Benedict in Caritas in Veritate. There are whole paragraphs on the question of technology and this hubris, this sense of hubris, that we are too much overconfident, optimistic, this utopistic vision of robotics, even in Laudato Si. Pope Francis says we are trying to resolve through science and technology the problems which we are created through science and technology. And this is quite a vicious circle. So Pope Benedict has rightly spoken about this concept of hubris. How can we understand this within the theology of creation, sin and redemption? about our vulnerability, about our sense of pride, our sense of dominion, our sense of trying to master nature in order to be in a certain way above the universe. But are we respecting the logic of nature, the dignity of the human person? So this question of critical approach of who you are as a human being. Who am I with my own intelligence? Can I extend this power of technology in such a way to increase my ego and at the same time with all the negative repercussions? And need to leave some time for discussion. Theological and the theological narrative speaks also, draws attention to the justice, common good, and solidarity. Okay, what are the potential social injustice and inequalities related to the economic model that assumes robots? They are considered as a new type of capital. What about developing countries? Especially when they are substituting workers. Will robotics enhance modern day poverty and create new categories of vulnerable people? Definitely will do that. All robotics increase social inequality by autonomy, algorithms, and artificial intelligence that account for job polarization. Will they bring new divide? We have the digital divide, and now we will have the robotic divide and the artificial intelligence divide. Right? So that's why Pope Francis in Fratelli Tutti, and in all his speeches, which I quoted, some of them speak about fraternity, because there is a challenge of dividing humanity rather than building a cohesive society. Will the digital divide encompass also the robotic divide? This is, I think, very, very crucial. And if we see the message again of 1st January speaks about the topic of protecting human rights in a digital era, and about, again, referring to unscrupulous use of technology driven exclusively by the lust for profit and vested interests. And this is to the detriment of equality, justice, and common good. So the time has come to question whether new forms of automation, algorithmic activity, necessitate the development of a stronger responsibility. And in the Rome call for artificial intelligence ethics, these are the levels of education, ethics. There must be more transparency in principle. IT systems must be explainable. There must be inclusion. Nobody should be excluded from the benefits. There should be responsibility. Those who design, who deploy this use, impartiality, do not create or act according to bias, thus safeguarding the fairness and human dignity, reliability, because we can easily endanger others, and security and privacy. AI system must work surely and responsibly and respect the privacy of workers. This is also a quotation from a message of Pope Francis. I will skip this. Maybe you will have read it. I can leave my PowerPoint. And this is the document which we produced as the European Group of Ethics, the future of work, the future of society, which I try to interpret this from a theological perspective, okay? And that's where I took the idea that we need to upskill and reskill societal skills as well, and new institutional arrangements and instruments are required, because we cannot assume any longer the traditional concept of paid work to be the minimum basis for traditional concept of social and economic security. This is interesting, the question of paid work, okay? The paid work or a minimum wage for all, because of the the new style of work which artificial intelligence and robotics is going to introduce. So most probably with that will be more open for discussion. The last slide is a quotation from Pope Francis to the World Economic Forum. There is a grave responsibility to exercise with discernment. For the decisions made will be decisive for shaping the world of tomorrow and that of future generations. Thus, if we want a more secure future, one that encourages this prosperity of all, then it is necessary to keep the compass continuously oriented towards the true north, represented by authentic values. Now the time to take courageous and bold decisions for our beloved planet. This is the right moment to put into action our responsibility to contribute to the development of humanity. I think when you start thinking about robotics, you can easily say theology is concerned with God, with the afterlife, with the meaning of life. Robotics is with earthly things, with machines, and there seems to be no connection like water and oil. They can never be brought together. In my presentation, I tried to show that there is a strong interface between theology, theological ethics, and robotics. We can contribute, and what the church is taking very proactively, it's us theologians who need to continue to reflect and enter into the present landscape in order to bring more these important reflections in order to guide and steer robotics in the right direction.